subscribe to the belief that you could be better. And therefore, then it opens up and it removes that judgment on yourself for not maybe getting that A or getting that closed piece of business, or, you know, driving that or getting that award for that big, you know, project you worked on, or whatever the case is, the promotion.
Welcome to the 1% Edge podcast, where we dive into the journeys of extraordinary guests committed to getting 1% better. And today, we're going to try to even show you how we do it. So today's topic is really about how do you get 1% better every day? And along the way, how do you create meaningful connections along the way? Especially these days of this AI-driven world, and they're filled with studies clearly showing that there's a decline in human connection these days. So I'm really happy to have a good partner in this, in explaining this, Jarrod Lopiccolo. Hopefully I did that right.
Yep.
He is the co-founder and CEO of Noble Studios, a creative digital performance agency driven by the mantra, let's be better every day. He's a lifelong learner and an advocate for meaningful connections, and is a passionate natural photographer who believes business can be both human and high-performing. Welcome, Jarrod. Really happy to have you on the show.
Yeah, Carlos, same. Been looking forward to having this discussion. So let's kick it off. I
knew we were in for a treat as soon as I met you in our prep call, and I just loved your energy and everything behind it. So I've been looking forward to this. Thank you.
Yeah, same.
All right, so let's set the stage for the audience with, okay, I love the core value of let's be better every day.
Yes.
But let's set the stage by what do you mean by it? And then how are you able to live it? Because, you know, let's face it, there's a lot of companies out there that say their values, but they don't live their values.
No, it's like, it's lip service, right? And I think it comes down to maybe there's this itch, right? This idea that, you know, we're content, right? But we're never fully satisfied. And I think that, and we get that in so many other ways, where we consume, or we always want to lose a little bit more weight, or, you know, there's this, we're almost in this state of like not totally happy. And I know that, you know, feels negative, but the positive side of that is to actually channel that energy into doing that sort of, you know, what your podcast is built on, that 1% more, right? Just that satiated need to say, you know, what if I actually took that recipe and I tried a new ingredient in there, that curiosity, right? And all of a sudden it makes that dish that much better. Or what if I leaned in a little bit further, you know, with that employee during their review process and just gave them, you know, really, you know, kind, not nice feedback, but just with the intent of making them just slightly better. And what you find is the return on that effort and that investment is just outweighs, you know, the status quo of not investing into that. And so, I think it's a tough thing. It's almost a curse, because, you know, you are satisfied, but at the same time, you're like, I know if I did that again, I would be a little bit better. And I think that just drives, I think that's in a lot of us. And I think we just all need that sort of social permission to do it.
All right. So I'm going to ask you a question. I got two questions off the top of my head to kind of throw at you. On one side, hey, I agree with you.
Yeah.
My mom was one of those pushy Cuban, you know, tiger moms.
Yep.
And I remember one time I came home with, and I was not an A student, but I studied hard.
Yes.
And I came home with a report card that was all A's, 1 B.
Yes.
And this is my mom.
Yeah.
What happened? You almost had all A's. And back then, I probably wasn't very happy to get the news. But I think back in time, I go, she pushed me. She pushed me to be better. And it's funny because here I am all these years later. And because I was just talking to a friend, and she goes, Carlos, you're just like that. You push people to just be a little bit better. Like, hey, that's good. You can expect more. And it's in a way, it's like a curse, but
it is.
It can be good or bad. Does that make sense?
It does. Well, and I'll tell you, I have kids, right? My son's 21, my daughter's 18. And I had to develop, you know, sort of a filter to that let's be better every day, in that, did you do your best, right? Was there any room for you to improve? And if the answer was, I did my best and I didn't see any room for improvement and they still got the B, then I was proud of them, right? And I needed that because I didn't want them to feel like they could never get my love or my support. And I think that's the same with employees or team members. You know, if they're doing their best but they're not reaching that full potential, then it's your job to either help them get there or just to accept that that's not what they're good at, and we're going to shift our energy into something else. You know, and so I've had to develop that filter over time, because the last thing I want to do is create, you know, my kids to have daddy issues because I was this person who was always never fully content, you know, and satisfied. I needed to like push just slightly. And so that is a good filter. But what you'll find if when you ask yourself, could I have done something different? Could I have done something a little bit better to actually move that B to an A, or to have that better client relationship or that better employer? And what you find, if you can not, you know, take blame and not be defensive, you actually realize, okay, yeah, there's probably something I could have done here differently. And I think you have to subscribe to the belief that you can be better. And therefore, then it opens up and it removes that judgment on yourself for not maybe getting that A or getting that closed piece of business, or, you know, driving that or getting that award for that big, you know, project you worked on, or whatever the case of the promotion. And I think you've got to get to a point where you're like, okay, I'm okay to realize that I can be better the next day, and not feel guilty or not diminish the success that you did have the day before.
All right. So I think you're hitting the nail on the head, because it's like two sides of this. One is, let's say your and I's expectations of someone and seeing that there's potential there and encouraging it, right?
Yes.
And making sure we do that in a way that's not punitive, but encouraging. Correct. Yes, exactly. Better word.
Yes. Yep.
Here's the other side.
Yes.
And you also alluded to it. Someone's got to be willing to accept feedback.
That's right. That's
to
right.
accept reality.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I've noticed that as well. Like, you know, hey, until they admit that they could do better, until they believe, you know, like this isn't, you know, this isn't a judgment on me. This is just, hey, I did X.
Yep.
It could be Y, or it needs to be Y. So someone's going to help me fill that gap, versus I'm only good for X, and all he does is complain, right? So how do you help people in your organization? Yeah. How do you find out you have permission almost to give feedback?
Yeah, you know, well, there's a lot there to unpack. I think one of the things at the highest level, what I don't ever like to be a leader of someone is someone that's a victim, right? Someone that doesn't take any sort of, you know, like responsibility for how they could have made that situation better. So that is hard for me, because if anything, I err on the other side. I take all the blame, right? And as a good leader, you usually like take all the blame and none of the credit, right? But at the same time, that's also extreme. So I think there's that element of, are you being a victim? And if so, that's a whole nother thing that has to be unpacked. Then there's the other people where it's like, okay, these people aren't victims, but they also don't know how they could have been better. And so you said the word permission. That is the best. I always say to give kind, not nice, you know, feedback. Kind feedback is really hard. Nice feedback is sort of cashing it in, not really caring if they change. You just wanted to sort of give them feedback. But if you really give a crap about that person, you want them to be a better human, then that feedback that you give is so important. And therefore, you got to make it safe. And so a lot of times I'll say, hey, listen, you know, later this afternoon, I just want to talk about what that meeting we had earlier. You know, would you be in a position for me to provide some feedback for you? Or if today's not a good day, that's okay too. Maybe tomorrow or the next day. I'm not letting them say no to it. I'm giving them option, right? Do you want it today, or do you want it tomorrow, or do you want it the next day? And that allows them to sort of bend their knees, get prepared for it. They know, because I'm a good human and they know how I lead and communicate, that I'm not going to be terrible and rude. And so I think it's really important. And this could be for your spouse. This could be for your best friend. This could be for your father, your mother, or just business colleagues, is really making it safe to provide feedback. And the other thing I think is really critical is that you have to make it safe for them to give you feedback. And so whenever I'm in that moment to say, hey, can I give you feedback? And then they say, absolutely. And before I begin, I say, now I want to give you some, but at the end of this, I want you to know if there's anything you want to give me, I'm here to receive that as well. And what that does is it just puts them into a vulnerable state. It puts them into a listening state, an active state. And then at that moment, once I provide that feedback, they usually do want to, just out of a slight moment of defense, they want to provide some feedback, which is good. It's healthy, but it might be exaggerated. It might not. But it gives them this rebuttal. It almost makes it layers or levels the pitch, right? It gets everybody on the same playing field. I find that's the best. And then once you have that understanding, then everyone moves into a growth mode, right? Everyone moves into, I can be better. I know where I can go. And then sometimes we joke about imposter syndrome at our office, because we create such a safe space for people to receive feedback and to know that they can be better. Oftentimes they're moving into this other spot where it's like, no, celebrate that. That is yours to own right now. Like, don't do an imposter syndrome moment. This is yours. And so, so it's tough when you move into like heavy vulnerability. It oftentimes does lose some of that level of confidence. And so you just got to have to balance both of them.
All right. So let's say our audience is out there
Yeah.
going, hey, I like this. I believe in 1% better or getting better every day.
Yep.
What are some of the ways you've been able to institutionalize that across your entire team?
Yeah. Well, it starts personally, right? It has to start. I always say any kind of great leadership has to start with you as the leader. And as a leader, I want to model the behavior of the leader that I would want to follow. Right. And so it's like, well, if that's the leader I would follow, I need to act like that leader. So I think of things like personal commitments in the morning. So on my personal side, I first wake up, I drink a good glass of water. I make sure I work out, I eat a healthy meal. And what that does is it sets this tone of like good decisions throughout the rest of the day. That allows it to transcend then into the office. It's really hard if you're making bad decisions at home, like didn't sleep well, didn't shower, didn't dress well, didn't shave, whatever, fill in the blank. And then you go to the office and you try to be this alternate personality, right? So I think you have to start first at home. That then immediately transitions into the office. And then I think at that point, yeah, right. I mean, it makes sense. It's just like, oh, that does make sense, right? And then, but then when you get in, then I think you always start out with like being empathetic. I love this. I always ask, how was your weekend? And I wait for them to tell me a story, right? And I let it happen, because if you just say, how was your weekend? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, they say good. And you're like, okay, good. Well, I want to get to business right away. You lack that human moment, right? To make that connection, right? Make that meaningful connection with someone. And then once you have that, then you can just move the needle so much more, because people see you as good. You're leading with good intent. We're working on the things that are the most important things. And then at that point, like all the other stuff kind of moves to the fray, and then you can have those conversations about, or you celebrate people. Oh, I'm so glad you did get outside and went for that hike. You've been talking about hiking for a few weeks now. How did that make you feel? Good. Yeah. Awesome. And then guess what? They're bringing at a heightened attitude, and perspective, because they're feeling, a belonging. They're feeling part of the workforce. They're feeling like this is their community. This is their tribe. And you see it transcend in all of the work that they do, So I think it has to start with you personally, and then it's got to bridge to them personally, and then right into work.
Yeah, it's I'm just, as you were talking, I'm thinking through different personalities that I've come across in my life at work, and it's that first thing about how's your day. It can't be fake.
Nope.
Guys, I see it's how's your day? Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And what'd you do? Yeah, that's great. And then you go, how was your day? Oh, it's fine.
Yeah, it's Let's fine. Jump into it. I don't even remember what I did this weekend. And that doesn't create that connection, right? And so I feel you kind of started this out, our conversation about this decline in human connection. And I see it everywhere. And I almost I almost overdo it, because, with even any Uber I jump into, I don't sit there on my phone quiet in the back seat. I loved when Lyft launched, because they were like, put you in the front seat. And I was like a friend, and I would talk to them. And even when I get into a car with a bunch of people, they're always like, put Jarrod in the front, like he's going to talk to them. Don't worry. But I care about these people. Like, what are you doing in life? Maybe I'll never see this person again in my life, but I think that human connection is just missing. And when you find it and you connect, I mean, I've had Uber drivers hug me, getting out of the car. And it's not that I'm trying to do that. I just care about people, and I think that because I feel good, right? It's about, I hate to say it, it's a little selfish. Like, my cup gets full every time I have a human connection.
It's good because I say the same thing. I get joy by helping others and seeing them expand. And I say the same thing. In a way, once I realized it, I go, hey, I'm being selfish, because I want them to be joyful, so I'm joyful. But
that's right.
I think it's goodness, right? I want to get, I love seeing people get better at something.
Yes.
Get through something that's difficult. And by helping them, it gives me warmth. It's funny, like by me giving you advice on something, I usually turn around and go, huh.
Yeah, wait.
I should be doing the same thing on my own deal.
Yeah, actually, that's a good reminder. I'm going to do that tomorrow. Yeah. Well, I think There's this great book I just recently finished. It was called Unreasonable Hospitality. I'm sure everyone listening has heard this, but it's by Will Guidara, #1 restaurant owner in New York City. And long story short, he says there's two kinds of people: one that likes to serve others, and ones that like to be served. And I think that, I don't think you're in one camp or the other, but you do lean one way. And I definitely love to serve others because I get so much joy watching people happy, watching them take stress off, watching them when you sort of anticipate somebody else's needs, like you see that, oh, they're almost out of water, and you go and grab a glass for them, and it's just like, it's almost like this little wonderful surprise. And I think it's the same when you actually, find a connection with someone. And I think that that's the big key, is people actually have an authentic connection with every single person in the world, but you just got to search for it. You got to find it. It might be food, it might be music, it might be travel, it might be wine, it might be sports, it might be business, it might be children, family. You fill it in, fishing. But I can guarantee you, no matter what side of the political spectrum you sit on, to what country you're from, you can find an authentic connection with those people. And when you do, it makes life that much fuller.
I agree. If you're willing to talk to someone and not throw like you're wrong, I'm right into it, even on politics, and please don't turn this off just yet. All I'm going to say is this. If you find someone that's totally polar opposite than you are, whatever that may be, try to find like one thing you agree on.
Make it
whether it's tax of this or law of that or less law here. Just try to find some common ground. Well, and if we were both in the Senate, what could you and I vote for together?
That's right. Yeah, no matter what it is, I feel, and I think that, and I always say, make it a game, right? Because life is a game in a lot of ways. And like, I remember when we would go to networking events, it was like, oh gosh, I'm gonna have to meet all these new people. And it's like, well, okay, I'm gonna collect 5 business cards, and I'm gonna find 5 things, one thing about each person, right? And I think that that it becomes a game. And then all of a sudden, when you start talking, you let other people talk, you just build a connection. It just it's so simple. It actually is so simple. But we have all these preconceived notions, and we negotiate with ourselves that person's always going to be like that. And so it's actually one of the reasons. I'm going to go off for just a little bit for a second. I'm a photographer on my personal time, and as I've traveled the world and really leaned into human connection, I'm working on this book, and it's going to be it's 100 photos of humans that I've met, that I've had a connection with, right? And it could be a cobbler, it could be a pizza maker, it could be a nurse, whoever. And the goal is I want to learn something about their life, and I have this connection. At that point, I want to share that I'm working on this book, and I want to take their photo, and then I ask them 5 questions. And I've got now about 40 photos or so of people.
Wow.
So this is it's about a 7-year-long book. And these are the 5 questions I ask. The first one is always like, what's your favorite food, right? Opens it up, makes it easy. And I asked this one chef, right? He was a restaurant owner, and I said, "What's your favorite food?" And he said, "My mom's chicken wings." And I was like, "Oh, I can relate. I like chicken wings." And then I said, "Well, who do you miss the most?" He said, "My mom." And I'm like, "Oh, I could relate. I miss my mom. She's not passed away, but I can relate." And then I said, "Okay, well, where would you want to be if you could be anywhere in the world right now?" And he said, "I want to be in Hawaii." And I'm like, "Well, my brother lives in Hawaii, so I have a connection there, right?" And then I'm like, "Okay," and this is in Italy. And I said, "What's your favorite movie?" And he said, probably the American movie Pulp Fiction. And of course I saw it. I liked it. I haven't seen it in years. And I'm like, okay, I can relate there. And the very last thing I asked, I said, what would you be? What would you want to be when you grew up, when you were young? And he said, you know what? I wanted to be a restaurant owner, like what I'm doing today. And I just thought that's excellent. So my goal is I want to print this book. It just has a picture of these people, and it just has the 5 answers and their name, their first name. And I want you to have a connection with that person. When you open it up and you see, oh, there's a homeless person and their favorite ice cream is, Jerry Garcia, right? Or Cherry Garcia from, Ben and Jerry's. I want you to have that connection with them, because I feel like we are missing this in the world. And it's definitely depleting this human connection, but the results of having it, right? There's a study that was done by Stanford, and they said 25% of people don't have a confidant. They don't have a friend that they can talk with and share these emotional moments.
Wow, 25%.
25%, right? And this is of Americans. And so that means that, and of those people, they ultimately are lonely, right? And when you're lonely, you're a little bit depressed. When you're depressed, you get anxiety. When you get anxiety, you don't sleep as much. When you don't sleep as much, you don't heal as much. So all of a sudden it leads to basically disease and all these other things, because you're lacking a human connection. And so for me, outside of running this business and everything else, I feel like my job on this planet is to get closer with humans.
All right. You need 60 more people. You said you want
I
to do
know.
100.
I
All
know,
right.
I know. And trust me, it's hard because I'll sometimes ask someone and they're like, no, I don't want my photo taken. I'm like, no, but you're perfect. And then other times I can tell like I've like had a great connection. I didn't have my camera. And I'm like, damn it, I missed that one, So, but that's part of it too. It's part of life, It's not, it doesn't need to be the next 100 connections. It just needs to be 100 people,
100.
So
I think that's awesome. I think
yeah.
I'm looking forward to the book.
Yes.
All right.
Thank
Let's
you.
talk more about this meaningful connections because I
Yeah,
think
please.
you have something that I think I have that I have friends that I know do not have.
Yes.
And that's curiosity. You're
Well
curious about
Yes.
others. Where, I
Yeah.
mean, like I travel with one of my good friends. He goes, oh, God, you're not going to stop talking.
Nope.
You'll talk to the damn wallpaper over there. You would leave the plane and all of a sudden, this spook's like hugging you. Hey, have a great trip.
Yeah. You're like, what? You just met this person. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, one of my best friends I met on a flight.
Yeah. Oh, no. Trust me. Yeah. Oh, no. I went to Everest Base Camp because I met a guy on a flight and then we became friends. And then he included me on this trip with a bunch of other CEOs and stuff. But that's to your point. It's like because you're not, it's just, why miss a moment, right? Why miss a moment? And I think if I could be very honest, I don't talk about this that often to be direct. So you're going to get some of this for the first time, and it's not demonic. I think it might come from the fear of death, right? In that, like, I want to live 3 lives in this one, right? Because what I do know, and while I grew up Catholic and all these other things, I don't know if that's totally real, right? And not to get into religion or politics, but I do know that this life is as real as I could ever feel, and therefore, I believe in God and I believe that I'll get there, but I don't know if I will, and so therefore. I think that this fear of like, this is the only life we have. I want to spend it so wisely. I want to be with the right people. I want to carry positivity into every interaction. I want to, I want to learn all these things. I want to be a good chef. I want to be a good hiker. I want to be a good fisher person. I want to do all those things because it might be the only time we have, And so I think that drives that curiosity as well as this fear. There's this fear on the one side. It's almost like pain, and then you have, no pain. And like, it's like why you work out. Oh, well, they say pain's, just weakness leaving the body, and then you become healthy or whatever. But there is just something about me wanting to stay curious and learn as much as I possibly can, because this might be it, right? And maybe it's not, but that's okay. Like, well, if it's not, then shit, I lived 3 lives in this one, so that's even better, And so I do think that drives, if I'm honest, if I'm being very honest, I think that drives a lot of the reason why I just want to show up the best I could be every single day.
I think it's wonderful. It's the other part of this, this came from a professor's. I don't know. I was at some conference or something, and the whole name of the session was kicking the cat.
Okay, what does that mean? Yeah.
So our behaviors have consequences, right? The way we react to someone or not react have consequences.
Yes.
So. His example was, your dad's at work. He has a tough conversation. He's angry. Your mom calls him. And your mom talks to him, and he's, blurts out at her. And he's rude. Yeah. She turns around. She yells at your older sister. Your older sister yells at you. You go into the bedroom. You kick the cat.
Then they kick the cat. I get it. Yeah, it's a butterfly effect.
When it talked to me about it, I go, whatever I'm going through.
Yeah,
my behaviors impact others. So,
absolutely.
I mean, sometimes I'm going through, and yes, this is rare these days. I'll go through a toll booth and there's actually an attendant, which hardly ever happens. Yes. And hey, how you doing? How's your day? And my better half is like, what are you gonna have a conversation with a toll booth person? I go, people are flying by every day, throwing money at this guy.
Yep.
What does it hurt to just be nice?
Well, and I feel that same, like I go to a lot of conferences and you see people working, the tables, they bring your food out, and I always put my fork napkin, I hand it to them, right? I don't let them reach over me and grab it. And it's just the smallest little thing. It's just acknowledging them as that they're humans. It's so funny. I haven't thought of this in about 15 years, that toll booth thing. I used to go to San Francisco all the time, and there was a toll booth you had to go through. And one guy was riding my butt, right? And it wasn't a guy, sorry, it was a girl, but this one person was riding my butt. And I was like, gosh, they're in a bad mood. Like, I'm trying, and I get up and I just say, I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to buy the person behind me, And so I bought, it was like $5. I bought the guy, the girl behind me. And then I forgot because I'm driving, I'm talking with my business partner and everything else. The next thing I hear, probably 5-6 minutes down the road, I'm hearing honk, 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 honk. And I'm like, what is going on? I look over and the lady's waving and I roll them on and she's like, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I'm like, oh, of course. And I'm like, she probably didn't even know she was riding my rear end, but the fact is like, I made that person's day just for that little, that's like, flipping
it's the reverse of kicking the cat.
That's it. Now let's hug the cat. Let's hug that cat. You know what I mean?
Pass it along.
Yeah, and it works. It really does work. I always say if you have a good restaurant experience, you tell like 2 people. You have a bad restaurant experience, you tell like 12 people. And so like, unfortunately, fear and, all that stuff, it actually spreads faster, and so I think we have to actually like lean in a little harder on the kindness side. And I'll tell you, for us, it has helped our business, right? We have deeper relationships with our clients, which means I have a higher retention rate with our clients. We have a deeper relationship with our staff. We have a higher retention rate of our staff. Like they work harder for you. They build processes for you. They think as if they're in your shoes. And when you do that, it's because there's accountability, because you see people as real humans, on the other side. And when you do that, you just work harder for people, but if you just always keep a wall between you and that other person, well, then you don't live a full spectrum of life.
I know I'm going to probably go over by a minute or two, but
yeah,
I think this is important to ask this question because there's people out there running a business, or managing a team, and they have that curmudgeon, that narcissist, person that doesn't care about the rest of the team. And I've seen this in the businesses I've owned, and they're like a cancer. And I got to say, Jarrod, most times I've probably held on to that cancer longer than I should have.
Yeah.
So what's your advice when you got someone that, hey, they don't believe in others getting better. They believe in themselves.
Yeah.
and sometimes they don't even believe in you.
No.
Right? It's all BS to them. It's all about their inner focus. And you run into someone like that, and I'm not trying to judge them, but they're part of the link that make up your team. Yes. And if you allow that link to stay too long, it's really hard to have a culture when you're accepting of that behavior.
I totally agree.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, I think it first starts with the attempt to try to unlock that person, right? And the only way to get there is you truly have to transport yourself into that person's shoes. So you have to get curious. You have to ask why. You have to have hard conversations. You have to make it, I mentioned earlier, you got to have a permission to give feedback. You want to open up feedback. If you understand the root cause of why that person is acting the way they are, and you can make it safe for them to talk about it, and you can unlock with them and give them tools and all those other things, I've seen people recover out of that. I've seen some of the best humans in the world convert, right? But there are some that will never let that guard down. They'll never open up, and it's their choice to live life that way. And then at that moment, by keeping that person on staff, you're not only wasting their time, you're wasting your time. And that's a Jim Collins, sort of philosophy, is you get the right people on the bus and the wrong ones off. But I think before you get the wrong ones off, you give them a chance, you lean into it, you figure out that root cause, you try to unlock, you try to make them better, you lead with good intent. You have to there's probably something going on that's causing them to act the way they are. And if they're in, so that's it. You try to unlock them. But otherwise, if you can't, you gotta move them out, because they're gonna find somewhere else. You might even be doing them a favor, right? That shocking moment might create an opportunity, because sometimes people need events, right? They need events to change, and so that might be their event. But by holding on, like I said, you're only like disservicing yourself and them. And as I mentioned earlier, I feel like time's one of our only currencies. You should spend it wisely. You only have one day to spend it. It's like yesterday's gone, tomorrow's a gift, and today's present. That's why they call it the present.
I've heard that before. That's awesome.
I love that one.
All right. I could talk to you all day.
I know. I love this. Yes.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself for our audience who wants to get to know you or your business a little better.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, I am I would say a serial entrepreneur. I love to create things. I love to have great conversations with any human. I feel like we can learn and get wisdom from everyone. And so, I do like to do a lot of thought leadership on LinkedIn. You can always follow me on LinkedIn at Jarrod Lopiccolo, JARROD LOPICCOLO. Just find me on LinkedIn. And then I just always say, don't sell me anything off the bat. If we want to connect or something like that, I won't sell you anything off the bat either. Let's just have a great, conversation. Let's find something in common that we can bond on. And otherwise, I'm going to keep plugging away at business. We're doing really well. We've got 3 offices, got almost 100 employees. My wife and I started the business. We still love each other, which is also awesome. I think it's
to work
possible.
together and live together.
Yeah, we love each other. We got we're empty nesters right now, or free birds, or bird launchers, or whatever you call it, and we're enjoying this next chapter of life and we're just having a good time. So I just think, but lead with kindness. That's the only advice I would give is lead with kindness. And have the benefit of the doubt that most people, actually are good people. So.
Excellent. And is the best way to reach out to you through LinkedIn?
I think it is. Yeah. You can also go to our website. Thank you for asking. It's Noble Studios, NOBLESTUDIOS.com. Take a look at that. And yeah, just check out some of the thought leadership we're putting out there. We talk a lot about marketing, travel and tourism, branding, strategies, all those pieces. But mostly we enjoy the human connection, as you can tell. And even with the rise of AI and automation, we're really leaning into that, but never at the cost of the human element, right?
Yeah, I am no AI expert.
Yeah.
But one of the things, especially since I've done like 70 some odd episodes of this thing,
yes,
AI comes up all the time.
Yes.
And I've come to this conclusion, right or wrong. I'll see if my theory proves out that as AI takes off more and more, your ability to connect with other human beings will be your differentiator.
100%. I'm fully on board. And I gave a conference I moderated a panel last week at a conference, and it was about the conversion, the tension point of AI and human connection. It was literally that. And you need it in every single industry, right? The more that B2B becomes automated and, AI can do all the lead generation and conversion, you're going to need to augment that with the human connection piece. And I think, and it's going to be a differentiator. It's also going to be, I think what holds us together, right, as a society, when we all can create the same thing, sound the same, do the same, this is where our personalities are going to come through, So I think human connection is going to be critical. It's always has been.
I had someone who said, "Oh, Carlos, you got to tell my 20-something that, feels like you can order everything online and never have to talk to people." I go, I get that. I'm not blind to it.
No,
but that 20-something is going to be a 30-something with a new baby and a spouse with challenges of life.
Yep.
And he's going to want to talk to another human being, maybe across them with a beer, and just go, "Hey, man, what a day."
Yeah. Did you have this thing? Yeah, I was up all night long, the kid was sick with a pneumonia or colic or whatever. And you don't get the same return talking to, AI engine, which I talk to a lot all day long, but it's just different. I think more than more, we're going to crave that human connection, the more that pendulum switches to, and swings to automation and stuff. But I'm also very pro AI to remove some of the mundane stuff so we can surface, be more effective, right? So get efficiency to be more effective, be more strategic, more connective. So
agreed. All right, last question.
Please.
What's your 1% edge? What are you working on these days to get 1% better every day?
I think it's a mind. So there's this idea of mindset, tool set, and skill set shift that needs to happen as we move into this really new world, right? Of post-pandemic, remote work, all those things. So every day, one of the things I'm trying to do is remove this passive consumer behavior that we all have, where we doom scroll. We always doom scroll, and so anytime I find myself doom scrolling, I say stop. Let's go into an AI engine and let's ask something, right? Let's just ask something what you're curious about. And so the other night, the other night I'm looking up hams and, and I'm like, okay, what about, prosciutto? And what's that Spanish prosciutto and you cut with the knife? How do you cut with the knife? And you just lead with that curiosity. So I'm trying. Thank you. That's it. You know this. Yeah.
It's my favorite ham.
I know. So long story short, it's those kinds of things, right? It's that I'm trying to work towards is this idea that we've got to have to develop new skill sets, new mindsets, and new tool sets as we move into this future. So every day I'm trying to just shift a little bit of my behavior of the old and adopt some of the new,
Excellent. Hey, Jarrod, it's been great having you on the show. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Carlos. Honestly, we could, like you said, we could have done this for hours, So,
I'm no Joe Rogan. We can't do 2.5 hour long ones. I'm just not that. People don't like me that much.
Right. Me neither. Yeah. So,
all right. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you, folks, for listening in to this week's episode. If you found some value in our conversation, please comment back and subscribe. We would greatly appreciate it. Until next time, I wish all of you nothing but the greatest success. Jarrod, thanks again.
Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate it.